know, you better hide some of this stuff. These guys like to take it back and use it for their race team.
Dick, tell her food is what we're after.
Food is what he's after.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, real nice.
Because I asked him the same thing. I said,
First time I've ever been in one.
Well, me too. They have one in Myrtle Beach.
And I made a pact with myself that I was going to get me a job when I got to be 85.
85.
85.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that.
You're working on that.
I'm working on
Send out for extra makeup for me and Steve Lane.
Yeah.
If they
A
got
lot.
If they got some color back, I swear that would be Leonard.
I think so too. What's with the rouge?
You look so pretty.
What are you going to do about Beatty there on top?
By God, she can't do much about me.
Yeah, put embalming fluid on me.
That's right.
Judy, you look beautiful.
I've heard it. But you're not proposing, though.
No, I'm not proposing at all.
Get you out of nursing home or what?
What are you doing, Doc? I figured I said, well, I knew Bobby would be the last one here.
They get you out of nursing home or what?
I told everybody an hour ago, I said, the last person walking that door is going to be Bobby Allen.
Well,
I said, when he dies, they're going to have to hold a funeral up 30 minutes for him
Well, I
to
was
get
the
there,
last
because he's going to be late.
The guy out there thought I was somebody, got my autograph. The only way you can tell Red's lying is his lips are moving.
Now, stroking up that stuff, we got to tell some stories on TV in here now.
Oh, yeah.
Some we can tell, some we can't.
Are y'all taping? Am I at the right place? Am I right place? And every race driver I've ever met is a pretty good storyteller. They learned that in self-defense. I think I look okay. Yeah, I think I look pretty good. I think my wife would be proud. My children, mom and dad, Michael, my brother. I think everybody don't think I look real.
You're ready.
I think compared to the other guys. Here we go.
Welcome to that Fast Car Cafe in Nashville, Tennessee. What would happen if you put together the guys that built the cars with the guys that drove the cars, with the inspector that tore down the cars, with the writers that wrote about it, and the announcers that announced it? You're about to go behind the scenes and hear the stories directly from the legends that lived them. These are the guys that made racing what it is today. Let's walk through the tunnel and join 24 stock car racing legends.
Hey, I heard y'all had a driver's meeting over here.
That's a long way from
Baker, you got one?
Oh, yeah. We used to have a crew chief named Brad Hagler, and nicest guy in the world, and he worked so very hard all the time. But every time he'd win a race, man, he would just couldn't help it. He had to have something to drink, and a lot of it. So Daddy won a race in Columbia one night, and Chick Morris I don't think he ever drove to and from the racetrack. He didn't fall asleep somewhere on the way, but he told my dad after the race, he said, look here, I'm all fresh, I'm all keyed up because we won the race, I'm really happy. I guarantee you, I can drive the car home tonight, tow this race car behind me, and everything will be great. And Dad said, well, okay, put Brad in the back seat, because he's already lit up. He's just happier than can be. Well, I ain't believing we beat everybody that bad. Anyway, he got in the back seat. He kind of goes to sleep, and Chick goes about 45 miles, falls asleep, runs off the bank, turns both cars over, and when they get all stopped, he said, Brad took the seat and pushed it off of him and said, can we get a beer here?
Dick, tell the story that you told at Buck Bergance's memorial deal there. It's not cars, it's motorcycle related.
Yeah.
That was a great story.
Many years ago, I raced motorcycles, and in 1952, we went to Richmond. Buck Begance, a very good friend of mine who passed away a while back. And we went to Richmond, run a race. On the way home, we got to South Boston. And a car coming north run into us head on. And I went through the windshield. Buck was behind me. I think he pushed me through the windshield because I beat him that day. And then a car hit us in the back. It knocked us on down the road. We went down the embankment and all that stuff. And it never did knock me out, but I felt up there, and I didn't have no damn nose. And I felt over here, and this eye was all not the way it's supposed to be. And I'm sitting there, and I'm bleeding every time my heart pumps, blood splashes out. And here comes Buck. He come down, he grabbed that door, and he jerked it open. Says, Dick, come help me find my motorcycle. I said, you son of a bitch, you find my nose, I'll find
And he never did find it.
I finally found it, had to put it back on.
I just want to tell you a quick story about Ed Negree. He was going to California, and he stopped at a truck stop, you know, and his wife got out, went to the restroom. So he heads on back down the road, and the guy calls in on the CB and says, hey, you hear about that guy leaving his wife up at the truck stop? And he pulls the curtain back. She wasn't back there.
Hey, Brian, tell the story. I was just sitting here looking at Pearson here, one of the greatest winners, greatest qualifiers. Tell that story about Bristol when Bobby Isaac messed with him during his qualifying run.
He'll deny it, but back in the early days of Bristol, they had a lot of bushes down in turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. They had what they call alder bushes, kind of a swamp. They got ready to go out and qualify. Pearson went out early and qualified, set a pretty good time. Back in those days, you could, whenever you got ready to qualify, NASCAR would just shut the track down and you go out and qualify. Well, it got a little bit cloudy later in the afternoon, and Isaac was getting ready to go, and he'd been running a little bit faster than David had. So David didn't want to lose the pole. So when Isaac got ready to go, Pearson went over in the backstretch down in turn 4 and hid in them bushes. Well, Isaac takes the green, comes flying down the back straightaway, and David steps out on the edge of the racetrack, and he's waving like so. So Isaac naturally backed out of it, come on around, asked NASCAR what was going on. They said, nothing. Well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, somebody stepped out on the apron of the track and slowed me down. And I want to go again. They said, no, you can't go again. And it took him about an hour to figure out it was David. David hid.
Now, wouldn't he used to pull up next to you on the racetrack and tell you to slow down and stuff?
Well, Darlington one year was running Leo Jackson's car in the spring there in the Busch race, and I was leading the race, and I was in pretty good shape, you know, and I look in the mirror, see where Pearson was. He was running second, and we got the white flag, and I thought I had him beat. I get looking in the mirror, watching Pearson. I drive into the third turn a little bit hard, and of course everybody knows at Darlington, you know, if you run the third and fourth corner really fast, that's where you make your time.
That's where you made your mistake.
Right, I know. Well, I go in there, you know, a little too fast and get a little high, and of course Pearson gets a good run at me, beats me to the flag stand and wins the race. So when we went back that fall, believe me, I had my mind made up I was going to lap David Pearson. And I lapped him, got by him, and then a caution come out. And I slowed down. He pulls up alongside him, and he's like, slow down, slow down, slow down. I said, the hell with you. And I won that race in the fall.
You didn't do that, David, did you? You didn't do any of these things these guys are saying.
No, they lying. Let me tell you one about David and Baker was running though. You know, Baker, he gets a little bit nervous sometime during the race. So David, he got all lined up, you know, and he had his cigarette light in the car, and he got all lined up. And so when he goes by David down the front, Baker down the front stretch, lights a cigarette just as he goes by. He didn't have to worry about Buddy no more that day.
Now, wait a minute. I beat him with 10 to go at Charlotte. He was smoking that cigarette. That was his mistake.
I'll tell you one time at Daytona, I was on the same radio frequency with him, and he didn't know it, you know. So he's at Daytona, and I was following, drafting behind Buddy, you know. We was going along, and I think Benny or somebody was running third. And they was getting closer on me. I said, step on it, buddy. I said, they're catching us. You know? He didn't know fun out there, you know?
Baker, he's at Martinsville, you know, and he gets a little excited, like he said, especially on Sunday. And he's on pole. I was on the outside pole. And every week, I mean, no matter where we went, it's when he's driving a 28 car. He was always getting mad at somebody. So I went over to him before the race started, and I said, now look, buddy, I said, you got a fast car this week, and you can win this race. I said, but you got to settle down on it. I'm telling him, this is me telling him, you got to take it easy on these in the early going there, don't tear your car up. Don't get so upset. I said, it's a short track. We're going to run over each other. Going to bump in. So don't get upset. He said, you're right. I'm not going to get upset today. I'm going to drive this car. I'm going to mind my own business, and I'm not going to get upset. So we're coming out. We get in the cars. We're going around on the parade lap. Everybody's swerving their tires. Somebody bumped into Buddy, and here he is. He got that on. We ain't even took the green flag yet. He's got that arm out the window, taking that fist.
Let me tell you the funniest thing ever happened to me. You know, you've heard different drivers say they heard a voice during a race. Well, one day, I'm in Daytona, and this car that I'm driving is just doing everything wrong. And I heard this, I'm loose. I went, there it is. It's in here. I don't know who it is. I'm loose. And I went, well, so am I. Then I realized that I was on Harry Gant's frequency.
We were at Martinsville. Junior might remember this. Harold Kinder. We was working on the car Sunday morning. We always do a radio check, you know, check all the radios. And Junior was working on the car, and I was in the car, had my helmet on, I was checking my radio. About that time, I said, check, radio check, and everybody was checking in. About that time, I said, hey, somebody's on my radio frequency. I said, who is that? This is Kingsport. I said, Kingsport? What in the world is Kingsport? I said, Junior, everybody check your radio. Something's going on here. So checking. And what happened is Harold Kinder had come over and got one of our radios, and he was hiding over behind the truck. And he was, and I said, Junior, come on, some cab driver or something got on our radio. They're going to screw us up today. And there's Harold Kinder, and then we finally saw him over in the NASCAR truck just to have
No,
him
you
just
didn't.
laugh.
Junior did.
Junior saw
You
it.
took your helmet off, went running to Junior, and gave to Junior. Junior put the helmet on. He just looked around. He knew what the hell had happened. Y'all seen Darrell? Darrell was jumping up and down. Oh, Henry Benfield was checking out all the radios. You know how you lay them out, check them out. He called old Darrell, and no, Darrell called in, or Henry called Darrell and said, how's your radio? Get off this radio. This is Kingsport. And then Darrell jerked that thing off. God, he got nervous, more nervous than Buddy does when he qualifies.
A couple names we haven't mentioned yet. Cuckoo Marlin and Hoss Ellington. Tell us a story.
Well, my wife was driving us.
Which one, Talladega story or the other?
Yeah.
Talladega hard time.
And she never drove no car with up and down windows and this and that. And she carried us back to the motel, and she got stopped. And they come up there, and my wife couldn't get the window down. She'd punch this, punch that, the seat go up, the seat go back, go up, down. And it finally went on, and Hoss reached over and punched the button, and it went down. So she made my wife get out, and I carried her back there. Hoss told me, they're making her blow in a hat. I said, get out. And first thing you know, here's 2, 3 more cars. And Hoss done got out. Them police trying to push him back in the car. I just sitting in there. Hoss said, get out, let's whoop them. So I got out, and they got, of course, my wife checked all right. They carried us to jail. And of course, Hoss, he could just go sleep anywhere. But he kept hearing the racket, and I had my boots off and had a tin can and kept beating it on the floor with my boots. I was trying to make a key to get out. But let me tell you one about Marty Robbins. One night I hear, of course, Marty had one of Cotton Owens Hemis, pretty strong. Of course, I had a big block Chevrolet. And I got to jump on him on the start and got in front, and we hadn't run 3 laps. Marty spun me. We didn't put out no caution flag. I spun it around, and I saw Marty going through the other corner. I took off. I got trying to find him, and I couldn't see him. I'd keep getting faster and faster. And finally, my boys was waving their hands. And I just kept getting faster. And finally, the boy just threw up a hand and walked off. When the race was over, I done a lap on the field. Marty Robbins made 2 laps, and he went to Grand Ole Opry. I'm still looking for him on the racetrack.
He spun Cuckoo out and left.
You were going to tell us a story earlier, I think it was about Cale, and we had to stop tape or something. Did you have a story earlier in the day?
Well, it's talking about Cale beating, banging on people, and
Yeah.
how he turned red. Ned Jarrett had put this race on in Metro Atlanta. I don't know if you remember that deal or not. And got down about 3 laps to go, and Kel was there. We was rubbing around, beating around. We both got down in the corner and spin. So Ned carried me up there. We was doing a thing after the race, and I won the race. Looked up, and here come Kel up in the little tower down there. He was as red as a beet, his old veins sticking out. And I said, Lord, we're going to have a big fight right here. Turn around. He said, boy, what happened to you? I said, I lost the brakes, Kel. And the next week, I think he used it on Buddy up at Bristol.
He had the worst brakes in NASCAR, didn't he?
I'd just like to tell you one about Hoss. He had Fred Lorenzen driving for him. And he takes the car out of Atlanta, shakes it down. Freddie comes back in. He says, she's just right, man. Says my grandmother could drive this thing. So they get on during the race, and he begins to go farther and farther back. About midway of the race, Hoss comes running up to Glenn and I, and he says, you didn't by any chance get his grandmother's number, did you?
Marcus, tell them about our racing here in Nashville. We had some pretty heated battles there for a while.
Yeah, when Mr. Donahoe was promoting that racetrack, I was driving a Dodge Charger out of Sevierville, Tennessee, and we decided we was going to come and run some short track races here in Nashville. And of course, Darrell was the king there, I guess, at the racetrack at Nashville, and we come in there a couple times with that Dodge and beat him. And the fella he was driving for, I guess Doc was his name.
Doc Brewington.
Yeah,
Doc
and
Brewington.
It got to be such a heated thing and a weekly thing that like one night they told Darrell, they said, if you let Marcus get underneath you, you're going to lose the ride. And we were taking you out of the race car because if you don't let him get under you, then he can't beat you. Well, you couldn't pry him off the bottom line that night, so I actually would beat him worse on the outside because the old Dodge run better. It was freer up there, you know. But after the race, they decide that they're going to destroy us guys with this Dodge. They tear the engine apart. They protest the carburetor. Now, this is a little bitty old 30-lap race, right?
30-lap feature, yeah.
And of course, Doc worked for a beer distributor.
Yeah, Fall City Beer was a sponsor.
And we was tearing our engine apart and making side bets, drinking his beer.
We would sit in Victory Circle. We bring in the coolers, and it was a planned deal. And Doc's theory was this Hemi. They had this Hemi motor in there. He said, if they take that big thing apart, they'll never get it back together. If we ever get them tore down, if we tear them apart, I guarantee it'll never run that good again. So that was his theory. So they bring in all the beer, and we'd all sit, Dave, and all of us just sit and drink beer and watch them tear the motor down and bet whether it's legal, illegal, gas tank, fuel, whatever.
Yeah, we was making side bets. I mean, it got to the point where everybody was drinking so much, like I told Doc, I said, Doc, he said, I'm protesting carburetor. I said, I'll bet you a couple $100 it's legal. He said, that's a bet. So when it got all done, I mean, this is a 30-lap race. He protested the fuel cell.
In a 30-lap race?
Yeah. So they took the fuel cell out and checked it and drained it, and it was okay. But when we left her that night, we had, I guess we probably had $5,000 or $6,000. We won the race, we beat all the protests and all the side bets. I mean, we left out a pretty good pile of money.
Yeah. And how did you? But the funny thing, everybody was happy.
How did you run the next week?
We had it back together.
Yep.
And Ed would come
And won
back,
again.
and I believe we won the race again next
He
week.
beat us 2 weeks in a row.
You tear him down the second time?
And then we had to get a new motor then. Oh yeah, we tore him down again.
Let me tell you one on Bobby Allison and Darrell Waltrip.
Oh, this could be ugly.
In 1988 at Riverside, we know, but the people out there don't know, Riverside's got S's going up through there. And Bobby's leading Darrell up through there. And Darrell kind of...
Well, I was in a hurry. I was in kind of a hurry.
Anyhow, he kind of punted, you know how you punt a football?
backed
Bobby
into
went
him.
down through there, wow, wow, wow. Dust, dirt, you couldn't see anything. So the race got over. Bobby, hot, very hot. But he said nothing during that afternoon. The next week was in Pocono. And I started the driver's meeting, and Bobby said just a few words. Bob says, what you going to do about that damn Waltrip? spinning me. Michael walked up, jumped up, said, "It wasn't me. It was my brother." Remember that, Bobby? That kind of broke it up right there.
Well, see, the whole deal was, it was the last race at Riverside, and he wanted to win it, and I wanted to win it, and we were running good. I mean, one of us probably could have won it. But he was in front of me, and I was just trying to pass him, and we got together.
Instead you dropped over instead of around, though. That was the problem.
Well, the road's narrow out there, It's a narrow
is that what
Bobby can't say nothing, man. He's here.
That's right.
What they need to do a little legalized stuff. I remember years ago, back in Birmingham on a restart, I come by, and I think it's Donnie, I'm not sure, behind me, had a faster car, but I could handle a little bit better. And on a restart, I was scared that I was going to get jumped. Come by, and the flagman signaled one more lap to go. So we put our hand out the window to let them know to restart the next lap. They come around the next lap, come off 4 turn. I stood on the gas and jumped them. The car behind me didn't go. And I won the race. They come over and said, "Why come you signaling me 2 laps to go when you didn't have but 1 lap to go?" I said, "You wrong. 2 halves, that's 1 lap to go." I just put them out the window and dropped the goal.
Only track where they've put in the printed rules. It says, turn left at the end of the straightaway and don't try and pass red on the outside. Birmingham Raceway. That's right there in the rule book.
Talk a little bit about some of the spectacular wrecks we've seen over the years. I know a lot of people wonder how Dick Brooks gained so much weight. Dick gained it in that bad wreck he had at Talladega. I don't remember what year it was.
He talked us through that on the radio that day.
But
Remember
the
that?
car flipped and
Yeah.
several times down the back straightaway. It had been raining all night, all kinds of mud on the apron of the racetrack, and the old car gets out there and starts scooting down the backstretch, and here comes all this mud in through the windshield just like a bulldozer. Tell them, you can finish the story, because you were absolutely covered up in mud, the uniform was full, everything else was.
Well, we had, it's kind of a long story the way all that started, talking about Hoss Ellington and Donnie, who was driving for Hoss at the time, and Baker was running Bud's car, I think. And we'd started back quite a ways back in the pack, but we were hooked up. I mean, hooked up. Baker and I both was hooked up. And we'd run that lap about, I don't know, 2:18, 2:20 or something, 2:13 or something like that for that lap that this happened on. So we came all the way from 10th to 12th, and it was on a restart, I think, and they would run 2 or 3 laps after that, and so here we go. Well, Baker goes by. I think Donnie was either leading the race or somebody was in front of him. Baker was the 2nd or 3rd car back, and I was behind him. So when we go by, and they'd taken, NASCAR at that time was messing with their spoilers. You know, these guys today talk about taking air off of these spoilers and stuff. Hell, we didn't have no spoilers to take the air off of. We took it off the whole car if we lost air, you know. we didn't have any of that. So, and they had, and they were trying to get the car slowed down, and they had taken the front spoiler. The only thing we had was the center of the frame rails, if I'm not right, at that time. And it had to be 4 or 6 inches off the ground. It wouldn't, you know, it was just regular bumpers and stuff, so there wasn't any air dams up there. And the cars get real light. And so anyway, Buddy goes by, Donnie or whoever was leading the thing at that time, goes by him and he turns in, and I come right on in. Well, as Donnie goes in, my car wiggles like this just a little bit, and I don't know if I hit him or did whatever, but I just took off. I went straight up. And the car did 2.5 rolls backwards and then hit, and then it started rolling forward. Well, and I remember thinking, when you're going along there and things going, and it just gets real quiet. I mean, there's not a sound of anything. And I remember grabbing the bottom steering wheel saying, God, this is going to be bad. I mean, just knowing that this is going to, you know, I was higher in the grandstand. Well, we rolled along, and it had been raining over there. And it rolled like 16 times, I think they counted on the tapes and stuff. And every time it went in that mud, it just picked up a bigger pile of mud. Well, the car was just packed with mud, and every hole I had was full of mud. I mean, everything. I never got all that stuff washed off. But when that thing stopped, now, go ahead and talk about the equipment we had in those days. When that thing stopped, it left ground just after you come off the 2nd turn, and it hit the gate going into the 3rd turn, which is about 3,000 feet down through there. That's how far it rolled. And when it stopped, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it had gone that far, and I just knew I was dead. And how do you know what's happening when you're dead? You know, you might be able to see stuff. You don't know it. You don't know whether you do or not. But it had to be dead rolling along that far. So
So I'm sitting there trying to get everything together, you know, and trying to make sure that you always hear somebody punches your lung or something like that. And so I'm trying to get everything together, and these guys are in around the net. We had nets in those days, but the guy's in around the net with a pocket knife. He's trying to cut the seat belt, and there's another guy come through the window. The windshield's gone. Guy come through the window, and he's pulling on the harnesses trying to get us out. And I kept telling him, I said, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone now, just for a minute. Just leave me alone. I want to sit here and just think about this for a minute. Well, they kept on and kept on. So finally, I listened to the belt loose. And this guy over here jumped back, and he says, boy, that's the way that works, huh? And the guy in the front was still pulling on me, and I hit him like this, and I said, just leave me alone. I want to sit here a minute. We get out, finally get out of the car, and they got me in a U-Haul or a Ryder van with a cot, an Army cot in the back of it. And that's what we're going to ambulance in. And that's the ambulance we're going to hospital in. And they go around, and everybody sitting here knows how you get up into the hospital at Talladega. You got a bad turn, you got to turn back in. Well, they went right on by down the pit road. The guy driving the thing, hauling me out of the car that was trying to drag me out, didn't even know how to get to the hospital. He was going on down the hill. So times have changed with equipment, right? You talk about those guys today that driving these things, and they got to have all these safety equipment and all this stuff. We survived all that stuff.
Those great pictures of you and Ned, you know, with the T-shirt, and that was about it.
Eli, let me add to that little story right there because I happen to be one involved with it. But Buddy did come by, and Brooks and I did get together. I got into his right rear or whatever, and his car first tried to turn wrong side, you know, nose toward the wall. Well, and actually he turned it back to the left. When I did it, it came out, you know, it comes sideways, and I'll never forget because I mashed the radio button and told Hoss, you will not believe what I just saw.
Yeah, that's what Hoss kept saying.
You will not believe what I just saw. This car, 3,800 pounds in, Junie?
37.
Turned over backwards. Now, Brooks is going down the infield, apron or whatever, right beside me. I'm here going forward, and he's going backward, and this car turns over the wrong way. And I'm looking at the thing, and I said, I ain't believing it. Well, I watched him turn all the way over, and never did look like to me it landed hard on the roof. But then it started flipping. And after I looked in the mirror, you know, on in the corner, and I couldn't believe, because all you could see was mud and grass and fenders and hoods flying everywhere. And I mashed the radio button again. I said, you can't believe what I just saw. I said, Brooks turned over the wrong way.
You know, those cars, when they, I don't know, you know,
I mean, I couldn't believe that, Darryl. That's the first time I'd ever saw it.
When they get, and they turn up the wrong way, I mean.
No, this thing went over backwards, though. It
was absolutely backwards. Rear bumper,
Same
going down the straightaway, it turned over backwards, just like a back flip like this.
Yeah.
That was your deal at Daytona, wasn't it, too? During qualifying that day.
Qualified, yeah.
Yeah, he went
Mine
backwards.
went backwards. He went backwards.
He was
Yeah.
going backwards and his pulled up.
Bobby went
But Don Levy can, I think Don Levy can verify this. Don Levy can verify this. That car flipped 15 or 16 times. And if I'm not mistaken, now this is Junie's claim to fame about all of his safety stuff and all that, and his tanks that we all drove all down. If I'm not mistaken, 3 weeks later, didn't we run second at Dover in that same car?
Yep.
We were in that same car, we finished second at Dover.
Yes, sir.
And these guys now has got 25 cars.
I can tell you good about it.
They still drive the same way, though.
You remember the big wreck at Talladega when Buddy was leading the race? You know, and the tire went down going through the trouble and everybody went around. Well, that was one of my first race I was running for the Race Hill Farm car, I believe. Anyhow, cars are going everywhere down there, and I'm sort of picking my way through, doing pretty good, and all of a sudden somebody hit me a little bit, and I spin around, go all the way down the first turn where like grass and that old metal guardrail's at. Hit the guardrail. A little bit later, here comes Cale flying in there, and he hit the guardrail, but there's a gap between our front wheels. And it'd been a pretty good while since the wreck had been going, so Cale gets out, and I'm getting out over here. He walks up between my car and his car, and looking at the damage on the front end. By the time the tires are hollering, here comes somebody off the racetrack and hits Cale's car and knocks him into my car.
It's Marcus's car.
Marcus.
Marcus hit me, yeah.
My car back and pinned Cale against
Right,
his
he's
car.
up there doing this, and I'm jumping out, and when I get around, he's already fell down on the ground. You talking about a red face now. He gets red when he's mad. Well, he's scared.
Well,
he's laying on the ground there, looking up, and I run around and I said, "You okay, Cale?" He reaches up and grabs me by the uniform. Is my legs cut off?
If I hadn't been standing in front of that tire, it'd have cut my legs off.
The tire turned, the wheel turned.
He had crawled around my car to the window and was hollering at me to look to see if his legs was cut off because he kept saying, Dave, my legs is cut off. My legs
They was numb, you know. I thought it was gone.
Yeah.
I said,
I was scared to look.
I said, Cale, you're fine.
He said, I'm ruined. He grabbed me by the car and said, I'm ruined. I can't feel
You've always been that high.
Eli Jr.'s got a good story about going out of a racetrack on the Old Northern Tour. One time went hiring a telephone pole and went out of the racetrack up there and
Where was that?
Came to stop against a Coca-Cola stand, I think, outside, and let Junior pick it up from there. It's a pretty amusing story.
It was 65, me and Marvin Pants, and he's driving for Glenn and Leonard at that time. And we had, I forget, I think Marvin had sat on a pole, or anyway, we was both up front. And we was in a heated battle, really going after it, you know. And I went down in the fourth turn, and the throttle hung on the old car. It hung one time before that day, and I told Herb, I said, that thing's hitting something there, and you got to fix it. He claimed he got it fixed, but he didn't. It got hung. And we went in a turn, and that thing went straight on it, hit the guardrail. It went up there like that and come right down on the nose. And when it did, I had the brakes on the thing, and it, you know, just flattened out and just about stopped because when it hit the ground, it almost hit straight down. And it just rolled about 2 or 3 foot. It hit one of them Coca-Cola little old trailers that pull. People gets it and serves hot dogs and stuff. It shook that thing around. There's a woman inside holding on, you know, to keep it from falling out. I got out of there and walked her, and she's about 8 or 9 months pregnant. She said, Lord have mercy, I thought I was going to have this baby right now.
You and Sam was probably the most well-known car flying around, don't you think?
Where's that?
You and Sam McQuagg there at Darlington?
Oh, going out of Darlington?
Yeah, that video has probably been seen by more folks.
Yeah, it went completely out of the racetrack. Sam and I were battling for the lead, and we just barely touched going into turn 1, and my car just got airborne. It just went straight up. Never touched the guardrail out of the racetrack. It went and hit nose first and end over end, landed upside of a telephone pole outside of out in the parking lot. That was quite a ride. But let me tell you something about Junior Johnson. There are pictures that document Junior Johnson running the modifieds on the beach course in Daytona, on the old road in the beach course, of Junior's modified flipping through one of the corners. Well, Junior is standing outside of the race car on the racetrack, and the car's still flipping. That's documented. That's a fact. I've seen the pictures, and I've seen him standing there watching that car still rolling. How he got out of it, nobody ever knows. But Junior called me one afternoon, and he said, I got a friend that wants you to go down to Charleston with me and open up a parts house he's got down there. And I said, his name was McNeil, Gwen McNeil. And he said, we'll pick you up in Timmersville, the little old dirt strip there, and sometime of the day we're going down and do the thing, come back. And I said, all right, that'll be fine. So Junior and McNeil flew in that afternoon. I got an airplane, brand new airplane. I mean, a beautiful twin-engine Piper, and went down to the opening for the new store down there. Everything went great. Coming back, it was dark, and had been raining a little bit. And McNeil lined up. He was an airline pilot, but he lined up for the little old strip in Timmersville. You know, I been flying in and out of there since I was 15 years old, and that's where my airplane was, and I knew it like the back of my hand. It was about 3,000-foot grass strip, and McNeil lined up to come in there, and I said, Junior was in the back. And I was sitting in the co-pilot seat, and McNeil was flying it. So I said, Mac, I said, you're a little bit high, and you need to go around. A little bit too high, a little bit too fast. Oh, no, I got it made. So he kept on coming. I said, Mac, I said, you're a little bit high and you're a little bit too fast. I said, you need to go around. I said, ain't nobody here but us. This is a short place. You don't know it. It's not embarrassing to go around one time, you know. Oh, no, I'm going to make it. Well, I knew we wasn't going to make it, but I couldn't do nothing about it. And came down, we was about halfway down that grass strip, still running about 150 miles an hour and still 10 feet off the ground. Wasn't no way to get it stopped if you got it on the ground. So he just planted it on the ground. They had some construction bulldozers and stuff sitting out there, and the plane turned sideways, and we was running 150 miles an hour sideways, headed towards a great big old hangar. And those bulldozers, that bulldozer looked like hotels out there, didn't it, Junior? Went by that thing. But finally, the gear broke out from under it, the wing folded up under it, and the dust was flying, and it finally stopped. Junior Johnson was standing in the middle of the airstrip before that airplane ever stopped, and he was in the back. That's the true story, file. And he was already out of that airplane, came out of the back, already out of the airplane, standing in the middle of the airstrip before everything ever quit turning over. So how he got out of that race car in Daytona and how he got out of that airplane in Timminsville, I don't know. But he did.
So, Junior, how did you get out?
How'd you do it, Junior?
Huh? How'd you do it?
First at Daytona.
Cale was opening the door and getting out and says, "Come on, Junior, get out of this thing, go catch a fire." I said, "Get over here, Harold."
That's the truth. You stand out there in the middle of the river.
Did you get out or did you fall out?
I got out. I was going, it's headed right towards the bulldozer. The blade is turned. It's going to hit it head on. It stopped about 2 or 3 feet on it.
Mario Rossi bought a brand new plane. Y'all remember him. And Bondi had a strip down there behind his house, you know, in Camden. But Mario had a brand new plane, and he didn't know. Evidently he didn't know about the strip, and he's coming down there to show off his plane, you know. And we was all standing out front there, and Bondi was looking at him, you know. He never cussed or nothing. He said, "Wonder what that joker's doing there." When he turned left, you know, and then turned on final and started down, he's coming right down on the road in front of Bondi's house instead of the strip, you know. And Bondi said, "Doggone, I believe that joker's gonna land. He just bought this plane there, and that thing touched down on the road and started taking down the mailboxes and phone and all. And it went right on out in the field, and they had to send the FAA and the truck and everything down there and haul it off.
I guess you guys had some different times with the aircraft over the years, huh?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Now you really asked.
Let me tell you about a time that Bobby Allison had.
Hey, I asked Bobby about the first time we went dove hunting down in Verbena when he was flying his little Mooney when he first got his license, and we landed in that crop dusters field.
Hey, it was a plenty big field. I just landed that little airplane there.
Fly with him, I know.
The book said that for a short field, it'd get off in 850 feet.
Yeah, but they didn't
and we
tell you
had
there
at
was a
least
ditch through the middle of it
875.
with a power line over the other end and a bunch of trees on the other end of it. And that crop duster plane probably had a lot more horsepower because it had a ditch in it, and then about 3/4 of the way down there was a power line. You had to go over the ditch, under the power line, and then up before you hit the trees at the other end. And
we made it, didn't we?
yeah, but we
Now, wait a
got
minute.
out and pushed the plane with the tail back into the woods at the other end before he got started. We needed that extra foot, and he pushed the tail all the way back in the woods, and then he revved that thing, went up through there, hit that ditch, went under that power line, and went up. When he did, the leaves was coming off the trees when he went up that other side like that thing.
I'll tell you one better than that. We left Bessemer Airport, the old airport at Bessemer, going to Martinsville, Virginia to race. Bobby and me, Don Lawrence, a fellow that worked for Bobby, and Judy. We took off out of Bessemer, and right away it started to get where you couldn't see where you were going. So the guy in Birmingham on the radio told Bobby it'd be all right. He got on up a little bit. It was fine. Well, the further north we got, the worse it got. And when you get up by Anniston, Alabama, Talladega up in that area, there's pretty big mountains. Well, Bobby naturally starts up. And I promise you, that Mooney's not very wide. The wingspan, I couldn't see the little light on the end of the wing. Well, he calls Atlanta, and we didn't have a transponder or anything at that time. So the guy in Atlanta made us turn for radio, for radar identification. So we did, and we're flying along there, and the guy come back on the radio and told Bobby that if he went down 1,500 feet, he'd be in the clear. Well, all this time that this is going on, I'm sitting in the right seat, and at that time I did smoke. I had a Zippo cigarette lighter, and I'd strike that cigarette lighter. I was holding it in my lap, and I'd light it like that, and I'd put it out, close the top. So we got all out in the clear anyway. We get to Martinsville, we're flying along there, and Bobby looks over at me and says, I want to ask you a question. Why were you lighting that cigarette lighter? I said, Bobby, that flame burns up. It won't burn down. If that plane had been upside down, that flame was going back in that cigarette lighter, I'd turn that baby over. But I will have to say this. Regardless of what they say about him, he's as good a pilot that's ever flown one. Yep. And after he got hurt so bad and everything and got his license back, people question, will you fly with Bobby? I said, I'll fly anywhere with him anytime. And, everybody here has probably flew with him sometime or other, except David. David says, I'm not going to fly with you, but you can use my airplane. So Bobby and I jumped in David's 310, and off we went. You remember that day when you loaned us 310?
You guys must have had some great trips, Barney, you and David.
We had a few. I like Pearson's philosophy on bad weather, flying in bad weather. He used to tell me, I'd say, well, we can make it. And he'd say, son, takeoffs are optional, landings are mandatory. Okay?
I'll tell you a story about Barney. Barney's a pretty well-rounded guy, and he's done a lot of stuff. He's done dives and swims and all that stuff when he was young and what have you. And we went, there's a guy named Claude Horton that taught David and I both to fly. And he used to fly with us a lot, going back and forth to races. David had no Aztec, and pretty good airplane, and we took off to Michigan one time. Well, every time we ever went to Michigan, somewhere we'd get hung up in weather. There would be a line of weather somewhere between Spartanburg and Michigan. So anyway, we were going along, and this time we were way up in Ohio, or up Florida, Ohio, and the weather was getting worse and worse and worse. David flying, and I believe he had just got his instrument ticket. Maybe he didn't even quite have it yet. Claude was still working with him. But anyway, we're going along, and Barney's been telling me all the way up there. I don't know Barney all that well, but Barney's been telling me about the life he's had. He got to do a lot of diving. He's been around the world. He's been military stuff or whatever he was in, and got to do all the racing and such, and that, nobody really wants to go, but if it was his time, he's felt that he's got a full life. And we're talking about this for an hour and a half. And Barney's got me pretty well convinced that he's probably, other than saying his last goodbyes, he's probably ready to go if things was to happen, Well, we getting bad. Weather gets worse and worse and worse. And after a while, we're in a mess. And I heard the center turn us loose, and lightning hit the plane. And if you guys ever been in an airplane where lightning hits, you got little beads of fire flying around the windows and all that stuff, and when it grounds it. And we were really in a fair bit of trouble. Anyway, so as we finally make a turn, the first thing I see is lightning hits a water tower right off the end of the runway there at Jackson, Michigan. And it was bad. I don't know how bad it was at that time because I hadn't flown that much, but to me it was pretty bad. Well, evidently it was pretty bad to Barney because he had scratched the windows. He had dug holes in the seats and everything, and Barney was not quite ready to go yet.
Not that day. I didn't have a ticket.
Not that day, anyway.
Yeah, knocked the radios and things out.
Yeah, knocked the radios out and everything.
Yeah. Cale Yarborough had an unusual passenger in a plane from North Wilkesboro to Timmonsville one time.
Tell us that story.
Thanks to Junior's boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Junior lives up in the mountains up there, and I'd always wanted me a little cub, a bear to raise. And so I told Junior, I said, if you ever run across one, hang on to him and I'll come get him. So he called me one day and he says, I got your bear. I said, all right, where you got him? He said, well, he's up here in a box. And so I got in the airplane right by myself and took off. I said, I'll be there in a little bit. Went up there, and sure enough, he had him sitting there, like about a 60-pound cub, sitting there in a wooden box, ready to go. So I put him in the airplane and didn't put him in the luggage compartment, put him in the back seat back there where he'd have plenty of room, because...
Being the gracious host
that you are. The box, I wanted him to see where he was going, The box was a pretty good, looked to me like a good wooden box, a cage, So we took off to Timmonsville, just me and the bear. And I got to Tillmansville, and before I got to Tillmansville, I got to looking back at that box back there, and I could see the bear was gnawing on that thing. You know, he didn't like that flying too much, and he just kept gnawing and kept gnawing. I said, man, I'm going to be in trouble here if that scoundrel gnaws out of that box before I get home. But he didn't. I went in when I didn't circle the airport or nothing. I went straight in and landed and got on the ground. But I'll tell you what, the bear didn't know it, but he was already out of the box. All he had to do was lean on it. He'd already gnawed completely through that thing, and I don't know whether that bear could fly that airplane or not, but he'd probably had control of it for me.
There's a prelude to that story. Henry Benfield had gotten that bear for Junior, and Junior had it up there at the place and had it set up in this sort of like cage, and noticed that the bear's paw was cut or damaged or something like that. So he'd gone to the vets, got this big jar of blue antiseptic. And he fashioned this coat hanger with the cotton and everything on the end of it and dipped it in that antiseptic, and he was going to put it on that bear's paw. Now, for some reason, Junior was bare-chested. So he's got the bottle in one hand, and he's looking, and he's trying to line up that bear. And just as he pokes that stick in there with the cotton, the bear goes, and lunges at him. And Junior falls back, and that entire bottle of blue antiseptic dumped all over him. And he said, damn you, Henry, come here and get this bear. It took him 6 months to get that off his skin.
Did the bear ever fly again?
No. Bear never flew again, though.
Where's the bear now?
The bear, I raised him, had a big cage for him, and could lead him around on a rope. You know, turned into a pet. But you know, things like that get so big, you get afraid he's going to hurt somebody, and so I gave him to the zoo in Myrtle Beach. He's still down there at Brook Green Garden Zoo at Myrtle Beach.
You go by and see your son every so often?
It was a she. It was a daughter.
Oh.
I got an airplane story, even though people wouldn't realize they had airplanes back when I first started driving race cars. Back in around 57, 58, and I was chasing points all over the country and in the sportsman division. They call it Busch Grand National now. But anyway, they had a race at Greensboro, North Carolina on a Saturday night, and one at Richmond, Virginia on a Saturday afternoon at the fair. And I wasn't going to be able to get back from Richmond to Greensboro in time to catch it. It was a double feature at Greensboro that night, so I said, I can get me a lot of points. So I had a buddy that ran the Chevrolet dealership, the one that Dale Earnhardt has now, and there were 5 of them in together that had a little single-engine airplane, and he said, let me fly you up there, and I'll fly you back to Greensboro. So that sounded like a good idea, so we went up there and ran the race at Richmond, and just 5 laps to go, it started sprinkling rain. Well, we got the race in, rushed over to the airport, and they said, well, the further south you go, the better the weather is. No problem. So I got in the back. I was tired and was sort of dozing off, and got up, and the further south we got, the worse the weather got. He kept getting down. He didn't have any instruments and getting under the clouds. And finally, he woke me up, and he said, Ned said, I hate for you to miss that race, but said, might have to set this thing down. I said, hey, don't take any chances. If I miss that race, okay. And so I dozed off again, and he woke me up in a little bit, and he said, okay, get up and fasten your seatbelt. He said, I found a place to set it down. And I thought he'd found an airstrip. And he circled around, and it was a cornfield. And this was in September, so the corn was full grown. You couldn't tell if it was new ground or what it was, you know, stumps in there or whatever. But anyway, he said, there's where I'm going to put her. So he circled around, and he made his approach, and right in, just pouring down rain then, and hit the ground, and that thing just mowed the corn down out through there, the corn ears and everything just flying in every direction, and got right to the end of the cornfield, and there was a ditch about waist deep, and the plane just tilted over right down in it. It looked like it had come out of the sky and went 4 or 5 feet down into the ground. Well, he was just as calm as he could be, and we got out of the airplane. He said, God damn, Ned said, aren't you afraid? I said, no, Eddie, I'm not afraid. He said, we just crashed an airplane. I said, you didn't tell me to be afraid. You told me to get up and fasten my seatbelt. You're just going to set it down, and that's exactly what he did. And the people were coming by the highway. As it turned out, we were near Alta Vista, Virginia. Highway 29 was 600 yards from where we were. Of course, it was a busy road, so I guess it didn't want to land on that. But people were thinking, you know, there was that airplane in the ground, and those people were dead. And but went into town, had to make out a report to the police station, had 1 taxi in town. And I was trying to inquire how I was going to get from there to Greensboro. It wasn't but about an hour from there. And so the taxi was on duty, taking one somewhere, so I had to wait till he came back, and did get to Greensboro, caught the second feature, and won that second feature that night. So got some points out of the deal.
That's a good story. Talk to me about, we haven't, so many new fans in the sport, Glenn. A lot of folks don't know about the Wood Brothers tradition. I guess one of the biggest stories, obviously, is when you guys first went to Indianapolis and all. What was that like back in those days?
Well, it was all new to us. We had no idea where it was going. Ford Motor Company, John Cowley asked me, how about going to Indianapolis? And I said, what for? He says, to pit Jimmy Clark. I said, are you serious? And he says, well, as a matter of fact, I am. So we went up there, and the whole crew just worked on the car to get it so you could pit it, because that had been their problem. And Leonard was doing this with the nozzles and everything to get them so they'd work. And we went up there and pitted it, and I believe we had 19 seconds and 21, which is the least total time ever spent in the pits there, and never changed a tire, and won the race.
What was it like when you guys first walked in? What did the IndyCar set think of you boys coming up from Stewart and trying to show them how it was done?
Well, Leonard could probably tell that a little better than I can. Get him on that.
First of all, I'd like to say that A.J. Foyt was driving for us, you know, in several races. And so when we walk in, we see him. So he's immediately showing us around all his car, how it's made, how the gas tank's made, and he's got an extra tank, you know, and telling us all about it. He says, what y'all doing up here? I says, we up here to pit Clark, and of course I'm not going to tell you what he said, but
there's a family video.
But when we went into the English shop, and you know it's a foreign team, you know, but they accepted us with open arms and didn't give us any trouble at all, or any resentment, you know. Had not that been
you, could it?
Well, no, it was English, but had not that been the case, you wouldn't have wanted to do it, but they act like they welcomed us there, and so it worked out real well.
Let's stay on the international deal a second here. Junie, when you and Brooks, when you guys went to Le Mans, what was that like?
Well, that was quite a trip, because they had never seen the cars like this, or full-bodied cars over there before. And the way we were running in those days, without restrictor plates and stuff, our cars would run like on the Mulsanne, which is a 4.5 mile straightaway, and kind of off through the woods. Well, our cars would run in the 220, 215, 220 range, you know. So they were pretty quick. We were basically as quick as the little Europeans' cars were. Of course, we'd start stopping 3/4 of the way down there, and those guys go all the way to the corner and stop and turn, you know. And taking off was about the same way. But they've got when we got ready to go to inspection, or scrutineering, they call it there, they don't do it at the racetrack. You just drive your cars to the racetrack there. You don't have to be at the racetrack. You can be downtown working on them, or a guy's house, or wherever. And when it comes time to practice, you just drive it out to the racetrack. Well, we were driving this car down to where they were doing the inspection, down behind the governor's house, and big deal. I mean, it's 750,000 people in early 70s. That's a lot of people, race crowd, you know. So we're going along through, and the traffic gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Finally, we just have to stop and get out, and they ended up pulling the cars down there. Well, when we come back, we're in an impound sort of area, and Junie is going to take it and go get some gas in it. He's going to drive it over to gas pumps and get some gas. And he's not gone very long. He comes back, and they scared him. The people was all over the hood, and they were on the trunk, and they were on the deck lid, and they were everywhere. So they scared him. He wasn't getting back out of that impound. He was going back in there and get a guard and go get some gas or something.
Kind of bizarre, Junie, was it?
Oh, I'm telling you, when all those people converged on that car, I mean, they just cut off everything but really the air that you would breathe.
Well, they just never seen that stuff. But anyway, when we go up, we get ready to go practice, and they've got a really good intercom system around that racetrack, or relatively good anyway. And so we get ready to go practice, and now that racetrack, for the guys that haven't seen it here, there is a racing surface in the front where the grandstands and stuff are. And then you go up on the main highway, right up on the highway, and you go all the way down to the next town, and then you turn and go through a little settlement, a couple little towns, and then you turn back. And as you come back, you get back up on that little race course there for half mile, 3/4 mile, whatever it is, in front of the grandstand. Well, in the back, there was no guardrails. It was just a 2-lane road, no shoulders, no guardrails, no nothing, just trees and, you know, buildings, stores and stuff back there. And Economack, he tells a good story about somebody that was down there with them, and they said something about, and he was riding down through there, and he said, well, I bet you guys take off a good care of your drivers over here, and all that stuff. And the guy said, you know, said, what do you mean? He said, well, you'd have a lot of trouble getting one through all them trees to get to them people, you know. So, and that's about the way it was. But anyway, we go up on the race course, off the race course, and get up on that road. And I'm humming down through there, and it's just amazing, the people. I just can't believe the amount of people. And they're standing alongside the road, not alongside the road. So I'm breezing down through there, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 mile an hour. And so the next time we come up, I go around, the next time I come up, I'm gonna make a lap and take off down through there. Well, I'm up humping. Well, they're used to these little cars. The driver's head's only that high, you know, and they meow, 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 and you're going breaking all that wind. And they're out on the runway. They're out on the driveway, out on the road. And I swear to God, they're standing on the road. You can't see through them. You're standing on the road way down there. And as you're coming, they just start parting, step back off the shoulder of the road, and you run right through them. Well, there again, they're used to these little bitty cars. Well, here I go through there the first time, and of course it's hard to picture, it's hard to describe this to somebody unless you can just see it yourself. But if you've ever had a double-edged plow, you ever pulled a double-edged plow through nice fresh dirt, that's the way them people looked as I went through. I mean, you look in the mirror and they were just laying them back. They were just laying back, they were falling around, everything was flying around. Next time I come down through there, you could see heads and arms and everything sticking out and everything, but everybody was behind a tree someplace trying to take it.
Eli, when I ran, we ran a Camaro over there, Billy Hagan and I, and he's right about the people, you know, but they cleared it up a little bit since he had been there. But the people down that long backstretch, what's the name of it?
Bolsene.
Bolsene's 4.5 miles. You know, you run 250 miles an hour. Down that thing, and the people will be sitting right by it with the tables and they're just sitting right there. And so help me, the wine glasses would have white caps in it. When you go by the fast, the wine glasses would have white caps in it, but they'd sit right there.
Okay. Guys, we've done another hour and 10 minutes, so why don't we break at this point and.
He got a doubleheader tomorrow night.
He's bigger than I ever seen him in my life.
Oh, he ain't
You
just
still
now
driving?
since I met him.
You still driving?
He was a little skinny thing.
You won any races lately?
I haven't run anything. I ran third or qualified.
Well, I mean, when you did.
Talladega tomorrow night. There's a little short track out there.
We're going to my
Dirt track,
I got a Talladega Saturday
You talking about the one right next to the big track?
Yeah.
You ain't seen nothing yet. You gonna run your gold car or is that thing all up?
No, I messed that thing up last week in that 50 lapper I had down Talladega. Somebody backed into me going down the straightaway. You have anybody back into you going down the straightaway like that? That's a nose up.
He had gold. He took me over and showed him. He had one of them gold dirt cars, wing cars, you know, with a body made like a wing and all that stuff. And
What are you doing, Ty?
And I'm telling a story on Red.
Hey, you can tell the stories later now, but
Wait a
make sure
minute,
you're
I took it over. He took me over and showed me this nice new car and all that stuff. And I looked at it real good and walked around the back and tore my damn pant leg. I said, that's good. That's Red Farmer's car. It's got snags all over it.
Well, I told him, I said, I've never seen a purse yet that they paid extra money for pretty cars.
You mean the guy backed right into you?
Yeah, back to me going down the straightaway.
Well,
Tore the nose
Bobby
up, pushed the radiator in his
everybody
pants.
Everybody always backed into
Hey,
it.
I guarantee you, all Red's pit crew, the first thing they had to do to be on Red Farmer's pit crew is go get a tetanus shot.
I heard that. Somebody told me you had to have a tetanus shot to shoot the timing on it.
I'm telling you, that's true, bud.
I never had to worry about pretty cars.
Yeah, all pretty and wonderful.
I built it. Don't tell me. I built it for him. I go over there and I climb up there and he's in a little buddy 2-car garage on his house, man. I was in there and we made this aluminum chute.
Yeah.
And he flopped that leg over and see his gas pedal was always over on the right hand side.
That's when they straddle the transmission.
And
That's good.
he put that cast in that thing and it won't work good. And he said, man, this thing won't work with nothing. I turned around and looked and there was a can of Big Lubes in there, open can of Big Lubes. I said, wait a minute, Red, I'll fix it. And I poured that bigger lube in there, man, it slid up and down. He said, that's just the way it needs to be. So every night he got in that thing, he poured a little bigger lube under that cast. You know, it's like STP, but it was called bigger lube.
Slide it up down
And, and I mean, that's the way it works.
I wonder how you made that
He
thing
didn't.
work.
Had to put your leg in it.
No, we had a cable. What they did to rig the
Well,
cable.
he had a cast on, Leonard, from here down.
What
He
they
could
did,
bend the knee, but he couldn't
what they
bend
did,
the foot.
Leonard, they had a cable running off the accelerator link down to a pulley and run across in front of that trough. And all I do is push in on the cable and open the throttle up and back off and push. I had to push my leg, slide it up and down because I couldn't work my foot. So I slid
See, he
it up
got
down.
over there and he's trying to work a regular gas pedal. Well, see, I didn't work at his shop. I worked at another place. So he called me on the phone. He said, come over here, I need some help. So I went over there. And I looked in there and seen what he was trying to do. I said, we need to build a trough for that thing, Red. So I built an aluminum trough. And
put the heel in it.
And he slid his cast, you know, the heel of his cast down in there. And he went to work. He said, it won't slide. And I looked out the window and I saw that big lube sitting there. I said, I can fix it where it slid, did it? I poured that big lube in that trough. And
Well, did you win?
Yeah, we won some races. We was running fuel injected cars at that time. We were running fuel injectors and stuff on the thing. The old
Well, I can
Coops.
tell you what. I can tell you. You talk about when 1992, 62. We ran 106 races, the three of us, and between the three of us, won 96 of them.
Not bad.
That's where they started that Alabama game stuff, because we'd run 1, 2, 3 to a lot of places, many places.
Well,
Bristol.
that was the thing that was bad.
Remember,
We didn't realize.
we went to Bristol
you-
and that's where we built those sedans, and
Yeah,
nobody
we
ever
had
seen
sedans,
sedans, and we qualified 1, 2, 3, and then there was about 50-something coupes behind us, and we had them sedans that ran 1, 2, 3 at Bristol. And I won it, Bobby ran second.
Coaches,
Yeah.
had tops it like that, you use them as spoilers.
Well, at that time, we didn't know about that. I didn't put
We
mine on.
built them actually just to be different from everybody else, because they had
Put mine
coupes.
on there for no wind thing.
But y'all kept them.
You know what I wanted, man? I wanted mine where I could match that gas pedal harder than you could.
See, the coach, the top, you know, being that far back, you know, it give it a weight transfer too. You get a lot
Do you
better
ever
weight
see that
transfer.
Well, the
thing?
only thing I can
Wait a
argue
minute.
about that was we had sedans, me and him, and Bobby had a coupe, and Bobby won just damn many races everybody else did.
Wait a minute, guys. Let me ask you something. Do you ever see that thing that his brother run, where he sat on the left rear tire?
Yeah, I seen it.
Huh? He
Oh.
sat in the back window of that thing, and it had a steering shaft that went from the middle part of that race car to the
That's where I
front.
got that idea.
We stayed back
Tim
one
Clark
right
ran one
against,
like that on the
had the
beach.
engine
You
set
look
back.
in that little small window, and his head would be right there where the little windows
They
at.
got it from him. That's the first one I ever
Like
seen.
a 36 or 39 Chevrolet coupe.
39 Chevrolet.
Yeah, 39 Chevrolet. Tim, yeah, I
Joe-
remember him running. I ran against him
Joe
that time.
Special.
Sitting in the back seat driving that thing.
Hey, I know about a 37 Ford coupe.
Man got in that back seat. He started backing out of the shop, you know, and you're sitting all the way in the back. You know, you have no distance to judge the way, which way it's going. You know, and he says to himself, now how in the world am I going to drive this? But he had a long distance from where he was the steering wheel out over the hood, and he was going to win the first race, and got in a little accident.
Now you better go get your makeup. We start in 15 minutes.
They had
You need to go
Up there.
They gonna take a 4-inch paintbrush and do him.
They're gonna use a roller.
What about
Use
a
a roller.
A roller, yeah.
Yeah, a roller.
You up this, you haven't been made up? You got to go up the steps right here.
It's right up in this
Right
corner
up in
here.
here.
Do I look made up?